Hi guys, this video is the beginning of the Stream of Consciousness Proper Hawks series section on combatives, and I'm going to go over some things that I find useful in concept before we start getting out physically, just as with the bushcraft stuff, to show you these things in action. There's two things that increase speed in a tomahawk or a similar tool, given that they're all the same length. You can choke up on the handle, which is a pretty good tactic. Very fast. See? Slowing down. Very fast. Problem with heavier heads is you have to choke up higher on the handle. This is an example of a lightweight head. I think it's actually about equal to the Cold Steel Trailhawk. This is the Frontier. And I consider this what I would consider a really primo fighting hawk, because of the second reason of speeding a hawk up without getting stronger actually, or doing something to the model. And that's, you see people always fighting this way. Look at that. It's hard for me to turn it. You flip it. Believe me, that's a lot faster. Especially if you don't turn it completely around without changing your grip like I just did. With that trailing mass, like I'm always talking about, and no spike or pawl, you've got some serious speed and control and changes with this particular tomahawk and ones like it, where the center of mass is trailing and there's nothing out here. So if you're just looking for a fighter, consider lightweight head. This one could be lighter, but it's good. And fighting pawl first. Now people say, why should I fight pawl first? I want to kill the guy. Well, that's fine. But you got to get to him first. And what's sticking out there? He's got his hands out. He might have his weapon out. Don't you want to be faster? I mean, if I hit the top of the hand, the radius, with something blunt, it probably works even better than with something sharp, for various reasons. You also don't have hooks and catches, so if you're trying to get in deep, index for the ear. If he misses, get the trapezial nerve cluster, which is kind of a dumb thing for me to say, because you're working with so much impact. You don't care if you hit a nerve. Scapula, clavicle, they're dust. Then you just finish them off. Same thing, if you come in on a guy with something fast, which also tracks better, so you hit what you're aiming at. You come in, he starts doing mid to high guard, bam, right on top of his foot. You were never even going for that. You didn't make any changes. You just changed your timing a little bit. You actually get slower. He commits something up here with all the new Cold Steel Hawks evidently being 22 inches, like I've been saying for years they should be, instead of the 19-inch, including the Trailhawk. That's a much better proposition. So, sorry I'm not making too much sense, but I'm just trying to get information out there. Want a pure fighter, get one of these and modify the head, make it even faster. I used to get Trailhawk heads and I'd chop the pawl, but for me personally, I want to have something as good as a bush tool as a fighter, and Cold Steel Trailhawk all over the market still reigns, price and value. The anybody wants to argue with me, I'd really like to fight you. Sign the waiver. Get some life insurance. You're gonna die with your hawk, I think, unless it's lighter than this one. It's just a fact, And I'm kind of a coward, and I'm not a betting man, or not a gambler anyway. But that's how sure I am of this hawk. So Trailhawk, because of its lightweight, is pretty fast too. I still fight it pawl first because center mass is right about there on it, if I remember right. It is trailing. If the bit was larger, it would just be sweeter for less complicated moves. But as soon as you get in real trouble, like you're all tangled up and you have to turn that head around, from the direction it came, you want almost nothing on one side of the handle and as much as you can get on the other. Turn, make improvements on the handle like I did with the absolute cross section. You can see this is sort of egg-shaped, ovoid. The Gen 1 handles are all sort of cathedral window shaped, I call it, which is kind on your hand. Also increases micro tracking because there's a flat side. I call it the strike plate on this side. It's got a structure inside of it, makes it tough. It also has, instead of this leading edge, it has two corners because of the flat. So the more off target you are, that point still comes out. So if you overstrike on a Gen 1 hawk, you don't get hit with the kind relatively flat surface, you get hit with the point, which I think is great. It's also really great when you get tangled up. You start turning that thing around on hard surfaces and it's going to repel people, split their skins, hurt their muscles, break their bones, which is good. Like I said, point of note while I'm talking about it, I just got a bunch of cold steel stuff in to make some new Gen 1s, and the heads are gorgeous compared to what I'm used to, which is a plus. I think it's new factory maybe, I don't know. And a lot of the grain on the handles is great, although I don't take too much stock in that preference with people. But the cold steel Trailhawks are now on a 22-inch handle, which is just gives you that ballast effect for a proper hawk hold. Higher like this. See people like this, holding it like this, bat. Good. When you get really precise, it's okay to hold it like this in bushcraft and stuff, And it's actually quite nice, but not necessary. After you do some mods on these, it'll just sweeten up more. So I highly encourage you to invest in one of these. If you're really into just the combative side of tomahawks, either get a Trailhawk and lop the pawl off, which is something I used to do all the time, but it's pretty much unnecessary now because of the Frontier Hawk. I think I would just modify the beard and maybe I don't know what you would call that, the chin of the eye, but a few things. You've seen my other mods. Remember, no mass on one side with the trailing mass. It's an advantage, and you want every advantage you can get cheaply at least, is the return. 180 degrees when you're fighting dogs or people, they're organized, coming at different angles, works really well. If I could still have only one, it would be the Trailhawk, because it still fights pawl first very well. That ball does great, doesn't stick in things. I like the small bit, but since I grind my own, I would just grind this bit down to make it what I would consider an ultimate fighter. But I want to talk a little bit about things I see constantly on reviews of the cold steel Trailhawk, especially with the small bit. First, people say, well, you need to be more precise with the small bit, and it's like, dude, that's what the whole hawk does, Especially when you use the ballast effect with the chalk up, you'll see, because this end is making this end turn with less wobble. More precise. What I usually do is I just tap what I want to hit, and then I just bend my wrist and go chunk. Most of my old Trailhawks, they've got about 3/4 of an inch that's polished, and everything else looks like new, because less than an inch is about what you really need on a hawk. They talk about over penetration. I'm like, over penetration, dude. You're out there hurt in the woods, or just tired, or you're tired and you're about to injure yourself because you've got a big forest axe or something like that, and you like it better because it has less PSI than this little bit. What are you thinking? I always tell people, an axe chops, a hatchet hacks, a proper hawk, pecks. I mean, if you can go around a tree Peck, 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 peck. Turn, peck, 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 peck. Go to the side that you want to be on when the thing goes down. Chop out a little bit. Bam! You know, you see people chopping through heartwood and all these things with any tool, when they could just break the tree at that point, or, you know, a downed log. It's like, come on guys, you gotta think. There's a bunch of other bushcraft tricks too, but that PSI relates to fighting too. I'm all bound up with you. What do you want? You want something like this giant forest axe bit? If you hit somebody with a forest axe bit with very little pressure, it's not going to do much. I mean, it's just a fact. It might make them mad. You might be, have log-like wrists and really be able to smack them. Good for you. But if you have something with a little bit, that's essentially a knife point. Not just that, but a small paw compared to a large paw. Suborbital nerve, supraorbital nerve. This nerve right here. Pesial nerve. Sideways chop in the carotids and jugulars. I don't like using the bit on the tracheal esophageal because those things are really stinking tough. Blunt force trauma, bam. There's all sorts of things you can do. And if you go in paw first and you whack a guy on the foot, what's happening with your bit? He's caving over. Bam! Chalk, chalk. It ain't pretty. I'm getting too excited because I love, cockfighting, but I'm also frustrated that there's so much information out there that everybody is going like this to. Like the PSI thing, What are you thinking? A proper hawk is about conservation of energy. If you could kill a bear with a .22 consistently, would you carry a .300 Winchester Magnum? I wouldn't. You can be very consistent with the tomahawk in both bushcraft and combatives. You cannot claim that for anything else except for the long knife. Think about it. In our new series, I'm going to try to talk about fighting with long blades, including double-edged blades like these cold steel gladius. We're also going to be talking about mods to those. And like the gladius, we're also going to be talking about fighting with something that is arguably more popular than tomahawks because people don't know how to use tomahawks. The entrenching tool, specifically a very good one in my opinion, the cold steel Spetsnaz. We're also going to be showing how to mod those, including the handles at home, and eventually we'll have a composite handle out for it. I really don't care for these in camp. Everybody loves them, but they're big, they're unwieldy. If you want to train to fight these, look up what the Russians are doing with them. But all I know is if a guy fought me like a Russian with these, and I had a tomahawk, he would die. If 5 of them came at me and fought the way I've seen them train, and they're very good, but they have huge voids, they would die. I'm not interested in, I think I mentioned submission, like with the heavier heads you might have to do because you're choking up more, you're using that end more. I'm not interested in that. If I'm attacked, it's to kill. Someone's trying to kill me, and I'm going to kill them, and I'm not going to mess around. And I'm going to try to show a little bit of that. Not much of it is my ideas, but I've learned from SEALs and Green Beret and taught myself most of what I know. But there's just so many voids out there. So be skeptical. Be skeptical of my stuff. Be skeptical of everything you see, but most of all, keep in mind there are some serious holes in the teachings these days. And if you think you see a hole in some of my stuff, let's fight. Sign the waiver. I'll talk to you later. Thanks again.